our reflections yesterday, let me just say one word of advice, if you like, exhortation or caution, if you like. I've had a feedback from one of the persons who viewed the address delivered yesterday from the United States of America, that perhaps what I say could go over the heads of undergraduate students. This took me by surprise. I want to know how you feel. Do I communicate myself? Do you have difficulty in following what I'm saying? Okay, but one thing I need to make very clear, and that is, it is only natural if at the assembly I make certain demands on your intellectual abilities. Because if we only want to move along with what we know, then we may feel more comfortable, but we may never grow. Whenever you experience difficulty, you must immediately also know that this difficulty is thankfully on account of being exposed to something new, something that I have not encountered or understood so far, and therefore this is precisely my opportunity. That is what a person who is genuinely keen to grow and to develop would do. A person who is intellectually lazy will say, well, this is going over my head, therefore I will not listen to it anymore, I will switch off. I'm reminded of an episode in which Adlai Stevenson was invited to address the American students in Harvard. After the address, somebody said to him, look, much of what you said went over my head. Adlai Stevenson suddenly said, friend, you should have held your head a little higher. Right? Now, that is something we have to do for our own good. Do not insist on staying on in your comfort zone forever. Growth and discomfort are the two sides of the same coin. Right? And you have today the added advantage of having the assembly addresses on the internet, so that if you do not grasp the whole of what I say in an address, you can listen to it again and clarify. Now, if even after that you have difficulties, you can approach any of my colleagues or myself, and we will only be happy to explain anything still obscure or unmanageable to you. Right? With that caveat, let's now proceed. For the last 4 assemblies, we have been thinking of just one word. What is that? Ask. Right? We still haven't finished with it. Today, let us think about the discipline of asking. The discipline of asking. Right? Now, how do we ensure that we are indeed, in truth, in sincerity, asking, and not doing something else under the pretext of asking? Yesterday I told you that someone may be pretending to be asking when the intention is only to attack. This is what in a more formal phrase would be called the rhetoric of attack. Can you remember that phrase? The rhetoric of attack. All kinds of things. Okay? So, we have to ensure that we understand the discipline of asking. Okay? So, I'm going to say 3 things today by way of helping us understand what it actually means to ask in the right way. Right? You're with me? Okay. The first thing I want to emphasize is humility. Intellectual humility. If you are not humble, if you don't realize that you are just a beginner. And I tell you, every human being, even the greatest of geniuses, is only a beginner. The great German author Goethe once said, when I think of the things that still remain to be known, I am embarrassed how little I know. And in fact, the more you know, the humbler you become. It's those who know absolutely nothing who strike up postures of arrogance. Because if you know nothing, then you can pretend that you know everything. If you do not want to know anything, then you can assume then that you know everything. Right? The first principle in asking the right questions is humility. Now, humility involves not only being aware of our own intellectual limitations, but also an attitude of respect towards others. If you think that others are all stupid people, if you think that nobody else knows anything, then in comparison, I am a king of knowledge. And therefore, if I ask a question, I will ask only in a condescending fashion. We have to develop an attitude of humility. And only in an attitude of humility can we receive something new. You will certainly experience this yourself, and you will also experience in relation to others, that people who do not have the grace of humility feel insecure when something new is introduced to them. Because what is new makes them feel uncomfortable. Because it suddenly questions their presumption of omniscience. Omniscience is knowing everything. You understand? So if you are not humble, you will not learn anything. And if you do not want to learn anything, then why do you ask? The motive could only be something else. As I said yesterday, either to draw attention to yourself or to embarrass somebody else. So the first precondition for asking in a healthy and legitimate manner is intellectual humility, an attitude of respect towards others, granting the fact that everybody else has something or the other of value that I can gain from. Till this day, I have not left a conversation with somebody without learning something. Even from a child. I have not left looking at nature, any aspect of nature, without learning something. So, we must understand that there is a great deal more scattered everywhere, that every human being we come across is a resource that we can learn from. And if you have that attitude, your relationship with others will also improve. That's the first principle. The second principle, and I want you to be very, very attentive with respect to the next two principles, because they're likely to be a little more difficult, because they are subtle. And I tell you, the more important an idea, the subtler it is likely to be. So now I'm going to say or introduce two concepts, two aspects which are subtle. Therefore, I want you to be extremely attentive. First principle is humility. The second principle that I'm going to introduce now is this. In order to ask the right kind of questions in the right manner, you must develop the discipline of thinking. Now, you might think that this is very simple. It is not. One of the most misunderstood concepts in our times is the concept and the experience of thinking. People are not thinking when they pretend to be thinking. Now, what does it mean to think? Thinking involves a certain relationship with the other, including the object of thinking, which could be an idea, book, for example, a work of art or whatever, if your ability to relate to something is flawed, is negative, and arrogance is a form of negativity, then you don't have the ability to think. For example, if you're prejudiced about a book, if you're prejudiced about a person in terms of his regional identity or his linguistic profile or whatever, then you cannot think freely about that person. You're not free to think. You've lost your capacity to think. So a certain degree of inward freedom is necessary to think. And in our times, when people say they are thinking, what they are actually doing is not thinking but willing. Now, this is a very, very important philosophical distinction. And I'll try and make it as clear as possible for you. And I plead with you to try and understand it, because these things are not understood. And they need to be understood. Now, the purpose of willing, and I'm going to illustrate also. The purpose of willing is to assert oneself over another. All right? The purpose of willing is what? To impose oneself on another person. To establish one's control and dominion or domination over another person. Have you understood this? That is the purpose of willing. This is what is called the will to power. The will to power. The will to dominate. All right? Now, the will to dominate is not thinking. Let me illustrate. And I'm going to illustrate using an episode from college. Though it is risky to do this, I'm going to do it. Last year, 3 students came to me asking for permission to start an e-magazine. I gave them permission, I cooperated. But I said, look, if you want this to be a college publication, you must come within the discipline of the college. They gladly accepted. I said, if you don't want the college control, make it an independent publication outside the college. I gave them a long interview. I said, don't publish this, and the staff advisor, without my clearance, don't publish it. Another person who was not part of the team at all immediately went and published it. Now, when I said this is a breach of trust, immediately said, oh, we have the right to think. No, this is not the right to think at all. This is the will to dominate. The will to impose your will upon somebody else. And the media as a whole praised this to the skies and said, and denounced the college, saying that St. Stephen's College is against free thinking. No, St. Stephen's College is not against free thinking. St. Stephen's College believes in passionately promoting free thinking. But it has to be thinking. St. Stephen's College is distinguished for its clarity of thinking, and therefore it will not buy every nonsense from everyone. This kind of confusion may sell in some other market. It will not sell here. I want you to be very clear. If you are educated people, your thinking must be clear. There is a difference between thinking and willing. Thinking is about seeking with an open mind. Willing is about asserting yourself. Have you understood this? Now, if your attitude, if your mindset, if your personality orientation is totally determined by the will to dominate, then you cannot ask. You can only order. You understand? You will only order. And I want you to examine yourself in light of the distinction that I have shared with you. Do you ask or do you order? At home, do you ask or do you order? In the way you talk to others, do you ask or do you order? In the way you treat your teachers, your elders, Do you ask or do you order? Please ask yourself. You're growing up in an age of infinite confusion, but more than that, you are growing up in an age that has fallen in love with its own confusions. And it is all the more necessary for us to develop clarity of thinking on fundamental concepts. And that opportunity, my friends, you have only in the assembly, morning assembly. Therefore, I'm telling you today, it is absolutely crucial for you, for your intellectual formation, for the wholeness of your personality development, to take the morning assemblies with utmost seriousness, with passionate keenness. For your own good, I'm telling you this. This instruction, I dare say, you will not get from any other source. So, I have introduced two things so far. One is, regarding the discipline of thinking, two things. First is humility. Second is thinking. The discipline of thinking. Only a thinking person can ask relevantly, searchingly, and profitably. And the kind of question that such a person asks will benefit not only himself, but also those around. That's the acid test, the litmus test of a good question is, it is asked not only for one's own sake, but also for the sake of everyone around. These are questions raised for the sake of humanity. And that is why it is said, those who ask the right kind of questions, not less than those who provide the right answers, are benefactors of humanity. Can you remember this? I'm going to repeat that statement. Who are the real benefactors of society? Those who ask the right kind of questions. I said this to you day before yesterday, that the humankind progresses largely because relevant questions have been asked in the past. And that's why I said 4 days ago that asking is a fundamental duty. All right? So I want you to see the interconnections in the web of thought that we are developing together. Do not forget what we have shared 4 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago, yesterday, because they all together constitute this tapestry of thought. If you want to experience the richness and the beauty of this tapestry, you need to hold it together as we move forward. So, humility and the discipline of thinking. Now, the third concept, which is actually a little more subtle than this. But it arises out of the second point, which is that in order to think, now follow very carefully, in order to think, you have to develop the ability to make distinctions. Now, I hope you understand the importance of what I'm saying, and I'm going to illustrate this. One of the greatest intellectual problems of our times is that individuals today claim the right to take everything on his own terms, on one's own terms. I'm going to repeat that statement, okay? Today, everyone insists on taking everything on one's own terms. As a result, all distinctions are lost. Now, if you say, for example, that to me, St. Stephen's College means this, all right? For example, I read an article in the Hindustan Times in 2007, written by an old student, a very famous television personality. She was my student. I'll name her Barkhadat, who said that for her, St. Stephen's is her experience of lolling on the front lawns. Oh, certainly it's a beautiful experience. St. Stephen's College is also that. I don't dispute it. But that is not St. Stephen's College in its totality. So you can say for me, St. Stephen's College is lolling on the front lawns. Somebody will say St. Stephen's College is what used to be called cafe raids. Do you know what cafe raids are? You know, when college was an all-male college, gentlemen used to be far more adventurous and certainly more hungry. So in the wee hours of the night, some adventurous, enterprising young men would decide to raid the cafe. They will get into the cafe through the ventilator or whatever, and then steal all the eggs from there, boil the eggs and eat. That used to be called cafe raid. It's a great excitement. I mean, people did it not because they could not afford eggs. They did it for the adventure of stealing eggs. I mean, since that happens in St. Stephen's College, you can say St. Stephen's College for me is cafe raid. I believe that St. Stephen's College is cafe raid. I remember an old boy, an alumnus, speaking from here, and I'm going to be very factually correct, and it will sound a little shocking to you, but you have to bear with it. Speaking from here, saying that St. Stephen's College taught us to be irreverent, and we expressed our irreverence by hanging underwears from the cross on the top. So St. Stephen's College is hanging underwears on the cross. Now, this is your definition of St. Stephen's College. But that's not my definition of St. Stephen's College. My definition of St. Stephen's College may well be that this is a place where character is built, where destiny is built, where people are nurtured to become responsible citizens, where larger sensitivities are promoted. That may be my definition. So, unfortunately, what happens in the process is, between your definition of St. Stephen's College and my definition of St. Stephen's College, there is no meeting ground. How can we think together? How can you ever ask a question? Or let us take another example. Citizenship. All right? Somebody can say, well, if you're not a member of this religion, you're not a citizen. My definition of citizenship is that you have to belong to this religion. My definition of citizenship may be someone who is born here or has gone through the process of acquiring a citizenship who endorses the Constitution of India. That's maybe my definition. Now, between me and the person who has a different interpretation of citizenship, what dialogue is possible? What thinking is possible? This has happened on a very massive scale in our times. There is no agreement on what any term means. What does humility mean? There will be no agreement. What does discipline mean? Is discipline a good thing or a bad thing? Depends on your definition of discipline or the terms on which you take the concept of discipline, and you can say, from my definition of discipline, it's the most dangerous thing. Or you can say, from my definition of free thinking, this is free thinking. Acting irresponsibly, dishonestly is free thinking. I would say, no, that's not my definition of free thinking. So what thinking, what healthy questioning can happen between two groups? I hope you understand the seriousness of the problem that I'm sharing with you. If you want a healthy, profitable intellectual debate, you have to agree on certain terms. You have to agree that the words that you use mean these things. For example, if you use the word book, it should mean a book and not a dog. You understand? Now, today people don't agree. You say, well, I am a free individual. I have the freedom to decide what the word book means. For me, book means a four-legged animal. And if I am inclined to believe that it barks, it barks. Now, no discussion is possible. This has happened. And this is happening on a big scale. But when it is happening in a sophisticated manner, you are not in a position to understand what the problem is. You see all the debates that's happening on television. Nothing more is required. Have you ever seen any agreement on any concept? Ever? I have not. Now you understand why? Because each person takes every concept on his terms. These terms are not shared by anybody else on the panel, and therefore the only outcome of a so-called panel is meaningless noise. That is why people talk over each other, because they don't want to be heard. They've come there only to make a noise. Now, I believe that this is a great intellectual tragedy. I think it's an insult to all of us. But we should not insult ourselves by staying on in the same predicament. So what do? We have to learn we have to accept the discipline of making distinctions. And that is possible only when we have the intellectual humility to accept certain objective norms. The dictionary has meanings. If you and I don't accept the dictionary meaning, then we cannot talk to each other, much less question each other. You understand? Let's rise for prayer.